65,000 soldiers, 1,000 warships, and the burning ambition to become the next Alexander the Great. History remembers this as one of the most dramatic military collapses in the long, bloody story of the Roman Empire. In 363 AD, Emperor Julian led a massive invasion force into the heart of Persia, only to watch it vanish. This isn't just a story about a lost battle. This is a story of genius, ego, and a single choice that killed an army. To understand why Julian marched into hell, you must understand the man who was never meant to wear the purple. He was a philosopher-prince, kept in isolation by a paranoid cousin who feared any rival with royal blood. But fate intervened. In 357 AD, Julian was sent to Gaul with a small force to face the fierce Germanic tribes. He didn't just win, he crushed them at Strasbourg, turning an academic bookworm into Rome's most celebrated general. His troops worshipped him. He ate their rations, slept in their mud, and fought on the front lines. That loyalty terrified Emperor Constantius II, who demanded Julian surrender his best legions for an Eastern war. The soldiers revolted. In Paris, they raised Julian on a shield and crowned him the supreme Roman Augustus. Civil war loomed until Constantius died, leaving Julian the keys to the world, from Britain to the Euphrates. With total power, Julian looked east toward Persia, and this is where his obsession turned into a tragedy. Julian wasn't just planning a war. He was role-playing as Alexander the Great, obsessing over every ancient tactic. His target, Ctesiphon, the crown jewel of the Sasanian Empire, ruled by the brilliant and ruthless Shapur II. Shapur had humiliated Rome for decades, raiding borders and sacking cities with total and complete impunity. For Julian, this was personal, a chance to seize eternal glory and cement his name among the gods. In 362, he moved to Antioch, assembling the largest Roman strike force the world had seen in generations. What Julian built in Antioch was a logistical masterpiece designed to crush any resistance in its path. The historian Ammianus, an eyewitness, recorded 65,000 elite soldiers plus thousands of auxiliary support troops. To feed this beast, Julian built 1,000 supply ships and 50 warships to shadow his desert march. It was a dual strike machine, army on land, fleet on water, making his supply lines nearly impossible to sever. Shapur II sent peace envoys to Antioch, sensing the coming storm. Julian sent them home without a word. He told them he would meet them in person, on the field of blood and iron. On March 5th, 363 AD, the greatest invasion since Trajan began its long march into the Persian sun. Before crossing the border, Julian made a massive gamble. He split his powerful army into two pieces. 30,000 men marched north to join the Armenians, hoping to pincer the Persians from the high mountains. Julian led the main force south, hugging the Euphrates with his massive fleet protecting his vulnerable flank. The plan looked perfect on paper. Force Shapur to fight two wars at once and divide his strength. But Shapur refused to play. The Persians retreated, burning every crop and filling every well they found. Roman forts fell quickly. One town surrendered the moment they saw the sheer scale of the Roman column. But at Persiabor, the Persians fought back. Julian deployed a massive iron siege tower that terrified the defenders. The message was clear. Rome was here to conquer, and nothing would stand in Julian's path to glory. In May 363, Julian hit a geographic wall that threatened to stall his entire momentum and campaign. Ctesiphon sat on the Tigris River, but Julian's entire fleet was stuck on the distant Euphrates. Abandoning the ships meant losing food and heavy gear. Retreating was a word Julian didn't know. He found an ancient Babylonian canal system, the Royal Canal, which linked both of the great rivers. The Persians had blocked it with massive debris and earth, thinking it was impassable for any fleet. Julian put his entire army to work. Under the killing sun, 65,000 men dug with their hands. They cleared the path, opened the locks, and sailed 1,000 ships across the Mesopotamian desert floor. After a brutal tunnel assault at Myos-Amalcha, the Roman fleet emerged onto the Tigris. Ctesiphon was finally visible. The sight at the Tigris was legendary. On one side, the richest city in the Persian world. On the other bank stood the Persian army. Ironclad heavy cavalry and massive war elephants waited for them. Julian's generals begged him to stop. A river crossing against elephants was considered a certain death sentence. Julian ordered the crossing at night. Roman boats pushed into the dark water, met by a rain of fire arrows and heavy bolts. Soldiers jumped into the mud, forming the testudo shield wall, fighting uphill against steel and giant beasts. The Roman line was unbreakable. The Persian formation shattered, and they fled behind the massive walls of Ctesiphon. The river was won. The capital was within reach. Julian stood at the very peak of his power. But at the moment of victory, the campaign died. The walls of Ctesiphon were too thick to break. A long siege was impossible. Food was low, and Shapur's massive main army was finally closing the trap. The northern Roman reinforcements never arrived. Julian was isolated, deep in enemy territory, with no backup coming. Then came the choice that haunts history. To keep his fleet from the enemy, Julian burned it. Soldiers watched their food, their gear, and their only way home turn into a pillar of black smoke. Julian ordered a retreat north through the desert, hoping to find a way out of the burning trap. It was a death march. Persian riders harassed them daily. The heat was brutal. The army was bleeding. In June 363, a stray spear struck Julian's side. He died in his tent that night, aged 31. The philosopher king died not in a grand battle, but in a dusty skirmish that history nearly forgot. The survivors signed a humiliating peace, surrendering Roman lands that had been held for over a century. Rome would never again launch an offensive of this magnitude against the power of the Persian East. Julian's campaign is a masterclass in the gap between tactical genius and the reality of strategic overreach. The canal was brilliant. The river crossing was brave. But burning the fleet was a fatal, arrogant error. Julian tried to be Alexander. Instead, he became a ghost in the sand, a warning to all future conquerors. If you enjoyed this look at Rome's greatest gamble, subscribe for more. The next story starts right here.